Hello, it's August. I've got really bad hair, but it's beach hair, so that's okay. That's bad. um, it's August already, and a year has passed from when I tried giving up cigarettes the last time. And I'm still off them, yeah! So I thought I'd celebrate. And I wasn't sure whether part of the celebration should be coming on and saying it live or not, because somebody who's quit multiple times is always thinking, oh, well, what if I go back on them again? I don't want to announce it. I don't want to mess it up. So I was a bit like that about it. I thought I'll have egg on my face if I go back on again, because I've had egg in my face about it so many times. Speaking of egg, I've got breakfast coffee in front of me. The thumbnail I have sums up the giving up cigarettes, the initial feeling. You know that GIF, the animated GIF? Uh, it's by this guy, Casey Green, apparently, because I had to credit it today for the thumbnail. Hopefully I'd be okay using it if so many people get away with making a GIF of it. I'm thinking he's not going to come and slap me with huge copyright, but I'm saying it's his GIF, right? Or it's his image. I don't know, does he have a whole cartoon series to go with that or what? I must have a look actually. The I'm fine feeling. Normally it would come, wouldn't it, when you're having your coffee? That'd be one of the triggers. There are all these triggers when you're trying to give up, and they make it harder to give up cigarettes. And apparently, cigarettes is up there with heroin in terms of addictability and difficulty to come off. So, um, that's why I'm so pleased and delighted. But I have other reasons to be pleased and delighted. So I thought, yeah, I'll come on because somebody might get some benefit of this. Although I have to say, when I was smoking, unless I was in the middle of wanting to quit, I might not have wanted to watch a video like this. Because, like any addict, and if you're a smoker, you're just an addict, you know? It's a very highly addictive substance. And you don't want to be reminded of your addiction all the time because you feel so bad about it, you know. It's a thing that I was talking on a live stream recently about social media addiction. So an addiction is typically a thing that you feel is outside of your control, that you can't control it, you know. Now, obviously, you know, I've given up for a year, so I could control it, but the only control you can have over the behavior would be giving up the behavior, which is the difficult bit. The bit where that gift kicks in, where you're sitting there, I'm fine. And you've got to kind of fake it till you make it because you don't feel fine at all. Every cell in your body is crying out for the thing you crave, and you're just so obsessed with having it. And I've failed numerous quits from having very sudden urges that I wasn't able to overcome. I wasn't able to do the willpower method. And actually, this might help somebody because I would say most smokers that I know are wanting to quit because there are lots of negative things associated with their habit, not least of which is the price. There are all these other health negative things or worries about health things that is making them want to quit. So, you know, listening to my little story of quitting might be helpful because I managed to stay off them a year so far, haven't I? So one of the things I'm doing is that I'm not celebrating too much today in my year, although I am having a gentle celebration. I'm not celebrating too much because that's one of the traps is the celebratory mode. because you go through all these phases when you're giving up. And the gif I showed was one of the phases, that this is fine phase, the fake it till you make it thing, where you're feeling like jumping out of your own skin for at least the first few days. And some people feel like that for weeks. I knew somebody who was a smoker on a smoking, trying to give up for him. And she had terrible pains in her stomach for weeks. And she thought that was a sort of an anxiety thing from trying to give up. And apparently it was hunger pangs. She didn't recognize them because she used to wake up in the morning and have breakfast of, I presume, coffee with nothing else but cigarettes. And that was her breakfast. So when her body started recovering in a few weeks, she started getting these terrible hunger pangs in the morning. And that was a sign of health that she didn't even recognize, you know. So I suppose we can be out of touch with our bodies sometimes. But the phases you go through, you can get in the first, it could be the first few weeks, can even be the first few months, you can get these terrible urges to smoke because your mind plays all these mad games on you to try and get you to smoke. This is what the addicted you does. If you think of it as two yous, the sensible you and then the addict. And they're kind of fighting a little war in your mind for a while because it's uncomfortable in the extreme giving up an addiction. And depending on the level of the addiction and severity of the substance, I suppose, what it does to your body chemically, you're going to have different degrees of difficulty, aren't you? So your mind is going to play all these games on you. So yeah, faking it till you make it in the first few days, it turns out to be a really great strategy. If you keep sitting there going, this is fine, this is fine. Your mind, if you tell your mind something, particularly if you say it out loud or write it down or something, your mind tends to believe it. And I have a little trick, and this is my top tip for anybody wanting to give up cigarettes, who is a very sort of what you call a very oral smoker, who's a huge part of your smoking is this thing of sucking on your cigarette, you know. I have a little, it's kind of a straw, but it's the inner thing of a pen because I like the black shiny thing. I have a kind of substitute cigarette that when I'm having a coffee or a drink or sitting down to read a book or doing something that is my, I'll have a cigarette uh, mind coming into play. I have a substitute there, which is not injurious to one's health and actually good because you take in deep breaths. And I found that although you're taking a not a very nice clean breath when you're smoking through a cigarette, that pulling on a cigarette thing was an action that I missed. And then I analysed it and I thought, well, hang on, that's taking a deep breath. And I was getting dizzy symptoms and things the first while I was off cigarettes. A few times that I quit because I've done it multiple times, as I said. And I didn't get it anymore when I did this trick. So I think I was shallow breathing a lot, going into shallow breathing on those quits. So that helps me not shallow breathe as well. But it also, you know, you can do all the twiddling around. And when I'm reading a book, I quite like having this in my hand or playing a game of chess or something. I'd be twiddling that around and sort of doing that, or sometimes just that, you know. But it's a substitution kind of thing that works okay. And it doesn't remind me, it does, I thought being reminded of a cigarette, I might be kind of keeping the craving side of me going, but it doesn't seem to have done that because using that thing doesn't make me crave a cigarette. My mind is tricked into thinking that is a cigarette. My mind is so stupid. That you know, I'm not allowed to call myself stupid, but you know, there are some sides of your mind that can be tricked. My mind, for some reason, is tricked into thinking this is a cigarette, and doing that action is so associated by my mind from the many years of smoking that it thinks it's getting a hit. So I probably don't get as much of a hit off it as I did at first, because it's the association between that and smoking is now gone. Uh, and that's how we work. We build associations between things. So, for example, you might have association if you're a smoker between having your morning coffee and smoking, and that would be a trigger point for you when you give up, a point at which you're going to be quite vulnerable to wanting a cigarette. So, navigating your trigger points is another thing that you have to be able to do. A very common trigger point is people who have given up, they go out for a few drinks with friends and they go back on them because they weren't expecting. That isn't a trigger point that hopefully you don't go out drinking every day. And but it is still associated with cigarettes. You see, there's a lot of, for a smoker, and I suppose all kinds of addictions are like this. So many activities are associated with your addictive habit. Um, I don't even like calling it a habit because habit is a word that tends to bring it down a notch from addiction because we use habits in other ways as well. But your addicted self has so many situations in which you use your drug, um, that you have to unhook all those triggers one by one. And when you're starting a new habit, and the new habit is not smoking, not being a smoker. When you're starting that, you have to establish the new habit because those connections, associations between smoking and all those different activities um, take a while to unhook. I read somewhere that it can take, now, I don't know, maybe if I read different studies, they'd come up with different numbers, but that it could take 7 goes, or maybe it's 14 goes at something, doing something before a new habit with it gets established or an old habit gets lost. But however many the number is, the point is that the new habit doesn't necessarily happen immediately. Although somebody like Alan Carr, who's dead now, but was a big giving up smoking guru, and the poor guy, he died of, I think he died of lung cancer years after he gave up cigarettes. But he said he still had a much better life as a non-smoker, despite that. People used his advice to give up for I'm sure they're still using it out there. Oh, I'm going to recommend somebody else as well. I didn't really use Alan Carr methods because people used to have to sign up for his courses and things. I don't know how much of it you got free online, but the other guy I'm going to recommend, a guy called Joel Spitzer, has stuff online that's free, and there's a book online by him called Never Take Another Puff. And although that didn't help me give up this time, that's a book that you can download free that contributed towards all the things I did that helped me give up. And it's a bit like that because of all the habits you have associated with your use of nicotine, basically, which is the part of the cigarette that's highly addictive. The tar isn't addictive. And I'm not a doctor. I have all the disclaimers under the video. I'm not, some things you might say, oh, she's talking out of her other end. But the tar isn't an addictive substance. It's just, that's the gungy stuff in the cigarettes that gets on your fingers and in your lungs and clogs them up and makes you cough and everything. The nicotine is very addictive. And so even if you're giving up, and I've done this many times, by using nicotine replacements, you're looking to get rid of them as well, because if you start reading up about them, you realize that nicotine isn't blame free, that once you get rid of the tar, your problems aren't over. You want to get rid of the nicotine as well. I was using patches Then on another quit, I was using little lozenge things. And on different quits, different things, you try all sorts of different things, and like nothing's perfect. But the Joel Spitzer guy is cold turkey, Mr. Cold Turkey, and for very specific reasons. But any way you're trying to quit is a good way to quit. And even if it doesn't work, uh, I am a great believer that you're learning how to quit, and that the activity of trying to quit is a very important thing. That even if you were to fail, and some people don't start their quit because they're so afraid of failure, even if you were to fail, you have learned something from trying to quit. So, I would be very positive about that aspect of it. And although I've tried not to beat myself up about it on quits where I've quit and then gone back on, um, it is disappointing when you go back on them. Like initially it's, oh, I got a cigarette, and, it's okay having a cigarette. You feel okay. It doesn't feel like amazing and fabulous having a cigarette again, but there is that a sense of relief. And the sense of relief obviously is, it could be, if you go back on really quick within the first few days, it could be a feeding your chemical habit, getting your nicotine fix, which resets dopamine receptors and everything. That's another thing I was talking about, the last thing about addiction, dopamine, and the role of dopamine in addiction. So this is kind of similar because smoking affects dopamine receptors. But, again, not a doctor, so my knowledge on that is, well, a lot of doctors' knowledge is not very good, but mine isn't expert. So it could be that when you're going back on them, that you get, relief, because I got my dopamine hit as well as the nicotine hit. So I'm feeling pleasure. But if the quit is like you relapsed a few weeks later, let's say, it's not, it's chemical, all right, but it's chemical to do with your emotions and your perception, because how we perceive things influences how much pleasure we get out of something. And you've gone long past the phase when all the nicotine is out of your system. This is where reading Joel Spitzer stuff was good, because they never take another puff book. Sort of pointed out some of the science behind how long nicotine takes to clear out your body. So in theory, he says, well, you really, by the end of the first week, although you might get a spike in wanting a cigarette, in a craving, you're not really an addict by then, because all the nicotine clears out of your system in around 3 days. And so technically speaking, you're not really addicted. So once I realized that, I said, yeah, because the cravings for me, anytime I've tried, have eased off significantly after 3 days. And then I get this massive craving that I have to deal with a little bit later, like maybe a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 months. And I have no weapons to prepare for it at all, and don't know how to fight it. And I cave in at that point. That is a psychological craving. So how the hell do you get rid of a psychological craving, was my issue. That's that strong that I want to cave into something that I don't want to do, So it's changing your mindset, really. And you're in a little, I don't want to say a battle with your mind, because the successful route for me was the gentle route of right from the beginning, not having to say, this is fine, with my teeth gritted in a willpower way, but saying, this is fine because this is what I really want. So for me, the key was getting to hate smoking so much that I would walked through fire to get rid of the cigarettes out of my life, because it got to the stage with them where they just represented such a huge problem for me, because obviously worrying about health consequences all the time is incredibly stressful, you know. And the longer you smoke, the more you feel you've only just barely dodged a bullet, and that the health consequences are going to catch up on you, you know. Um, so I hated it from that point of view. And then I hated it from how I was feeling while I was actually smoking as well. Because when I really looked at it, I realized it was interfering more and more in my life, becoming more and more obsessive. Because I was always kind of a heavy ish smoker, kind of 20 cigarettes a day kind of smoker. You know, some people are much heavier than that, but that's heavy smoking. And even at like 15 to 20 cigarettes a day, and I did various cut downs and everything, and even when I cut down to about 10, I didn't feel well on them. They made me very headachy. They gave me a really rotten taste in my mouth. I had me brushing my teeth all the time, and I was running in and out of the house, because one of the things I did, and it was a great thing to do actually, was not smoke in the house. I haven't smoked in the house for very many years because it absolutely stinks. When I gave up, quit years ago. I realized how stinky they were, because I had a friend that smoked in the house, and she'd wear the same, say, jacket for a few days, or cardigan or whatever, and the smell of it. It smells like an old ashtray after a few hours when you're a smoker, not like a fresh cigarette. So it's really, that old ashtray smell is really nasty, rotten smell. So it smells terrible, you know. So I had made that decision years ago. I wasn't going to smoke in the house, but it was also massively inconvenient because I'm in Ireland and it rains all the time, or it seems like it rains all the time. And the rest of the time, it's really, really windy. Everybody's complaining about the summer this year. I got to the beach twice so far. I want to get there at least one more time. But one of the times I went, the weather wasn't particularly warm. I had to really force myself to go in the water. Um, but it's not much fun going in and out of the house. And add to that, if you want a cigarette about every 40 minutes, you're going in and out of the house, interrupting your activity every 40 minutes, which is a pain. But that's good, because you want it to be inconvenient to smoke. So I found that great, because I said, I'd love not to be doing this because it's such a pain. But I was very motivated to not smoke in the house, because I don't want a stinky house, yellow walls and yellow curtains, and me stinking in the middle of it, and hair stinking and clothes stinking and the whole lot. So that was good. And standing in the rain, feeling like a fool in the porch in your house, you know, smoking a little butt, you do feel like, you know, oh, this is a horrible addiction, which is how you should feel just before you decide, I'm giving up this nonsense. This is ridiculous. This can't go on. So I didn't use any aids, any kind of aids to stop smoking this time, except that thing. And I kind of sensed I was in a good mindset. But when you're giving up, actually, it doesn't really matter what mindset you're in, as long as you can stay out of deep panic. Which is easier said than done, I suppose, for an addict, isn't it? You know, your panic is going to be, you know, accompanying you on the first while you're doing something, you know. Um, but this time, because I had built the hatred of cigarettes so well, that was my foundation for giving up. So that when I gave up this time, I just felt such a sense of relief. That I thought, I wasn't sure I wasn't going to relapse, because I felt a bit like this before, and then found myself a few days later around the shop buying cigarettes, smoking one, throwing the entire pack on the fire. and then going around again the next day buying another pack. That's really expensive. Cigarettes are so incredibly expensive in Ireland, so expensive that really it should be only rich people smoking. And in fact, there are many people who walk around, they're smokers, they walk around, they just walk around all day trying to bum cigarettes from other people. So that's another negative consequence I could add to being a smoker, that every time I go out and about, somebody tries to get a cigarette off me, and I've paid for the cigarettes and they're wildly expensive. It's not like the old days when somebody asked for a cigarette or you'd offer somebody a cigarette. Because it was a chummy, everybody smoked, nearly everybody seemed to smoke, and it was a chummy thing to do, to smoke with somebody else. Those days have gone. You don't even offer somebody a cigarette anymore, and they don't take offense at that because it's so expensive here to smoke. But at the same time, if somebody says, I'm gasping for a cigarette, mate, they come up to you in the street and ask, gasping for a cigarette, I don't suppose you'd have a cigarette. They see you like rolling up one, or taking one out of a pack or something. It's very hard to say no to somebody when they do that desperate addict thing, But at the same time, you don't want to be funding everybody else's habit as well as your own, addiction. I'll stop saying habit because it is an addiction. So that to be over the thing of that was a horrible cycle of giving up, buying cigarettes, wasting a lot of money throwing them away, but still determined to give up. You see, that's why I was smoking one and throwing them away. People were giving out to me about throwing them away again, saying, would you at least keep the packet, and then you don't have to smoke them all at once. You can leave them there and just have some if you get an urge. Well, I'm sorry, but addiction doesn't work like that. Addiction is like you can't stop, So that was actually a plus. The fact that I had the horrid experience of literally burning money, burning huge amounts of money in my fireplace while I was trying to give up. But this time I didn't do that. This time I had what you call an easy quit, and sometimes you get moments in time when all the stars have aligned perfectly for you to give up cigarettes. And it happened for me. And you know what it was, really? I've never met a smoker either who didn't have a lot of anxiety about something going, whether it's subconscious anxiety or whether it's coming up for them on a conscious level. But maybe there are some out there who don't have anxiety. I could be wrong. But I have noticed this in smokers, or smokers generally are very anxious people. And I have a lot of unconscious anxiety because I noticed I have another habit of doing this chewing the inside of my mouth thing, which is, I think they call it a body fixated habit or something like that. But that's another unconscious anxiety thing. So I got to fix that as well. But smokers, I think, tend to have a lot of anxiety going, and you can try and deal with the underlying anxiety, or you can just say, well, okay, smoking was my fix for anxiety, so let's have a talk with myself about how anxiety and cigarettes work. And the cigarettes, you have to realize that the cigarettes don't fix the anxiety. So if you one of the lies that you tell to yourself about your smoking in order to keep doing it without the massive levels of guilt that we all feel about smoking, if one of the lies is I smoke to relax myself, that's a lie. Because smoking doesn't actually relax you. It alleviates the anxiety that the nicotine helped create by your dopamine levels being depleted over time by smoking. And then you need a cigarette every like 40 minutes or however often you need it to bring those levels up again, you see. So you've created a situation that the cigarettes are alleviating in the first place. So if you were to give them up, yeah, you'd have more anxiety for a little while the nicotine is clearing your system. But then you're calmer. your base level becomes a bit calmer, then after it's okay, dopamine receptors and everything, you know, uh, take months to change to normal levels and everything like that. But so that's just an example of one of the kinds of lies, and they're sort of along the lines of the oh, smoking is one of the only things I have in my life that's mine. That's uh, it's a hobby. These kind of things. It's not that bad. It's just a hobby. I think really, how many people do you know that only smoke two a day? Maybe those people don't have to worry too much. I don't know how much damage two a day would do. There isn't really an amount that is totally safe, with them. But you do have to get rid of some of the lies you're telling yourself. And that little Joel Spitzer book, and he's got a website and everything, loads of articles on the website that does alleviate a lot of your lying to yourself kind of activity. But getting to hate them was definitely the thing for me. And then when I quit, I had come off the back of probably several quits in a row. And again, they say that was where the 7 came in. The 7 was some study that said that most people who manage to quit take about 7 goes in order to have a successful quit. So I think I call this successful after a year, But what I did is I focused on the second year before I got to the first year, because I didn't want the celebration of the first year to be a trigger to go back on them. I'm so cautious and not confident in my quit, but that's okay. You don't have to be super confident. You just have to keep not smoking. And I'm not obsessing over them all the time, because my weird little straw trick is right from the beginning, actually, when I gave them up, because the sense of relief was so strong, because I hated them so much, that I really wasn't obsessing over them from the start. So it was a very relaxed quit. And I had all this information that I had built up from previous quits. I might not have had a total confidence in myself that I was going to succeed, but I was saying, you know what, I do have confidence that I'll never stop trying to quit, and that counts for something. And I did succeed this time. So I'm headed into year 2, and I hope something that I said was of some use if you're one of those smokers who's wanting to quit because you just feel terrible about smoking all the time, and like people shame you for it, and and you feel ashamed of smoking anyway, even though it's an addiction and it's not really something to be ashamed of. It's something to figure out how to fix and to fix it, because it could really ruin your life. Health wise, could really, addictions are very, very damaging in other areas of your life. Obviously, this area would be health wise, wouldn't it? And financial, actually, if you're if you're buying them in Ireland, financially, that's not a good enough reason on its own to give up cigarettes, I don't think. You have to really hate them. I think you have to get yourself to the stage where you start really seeing them for what they are, and then hating them, and then saying, how the hell do I get away from this thing that I hate? Then you're going to have more chances of getting away. If you hate something, you want to avoid it, don't you? So that's how you do it. You build the groundwork of hating them first, and then you are just so ready to get the hell away from them, And to see them for what they are is part of learning to hate that addiction and to get away from it, and having lots of good things to go to. You see, I don't have to sit there white knuckling it. I have other things which are, they don't, nothing takes your mind off cigarettes if you're in a craving. Nothing is going to really do that for you. You know, that's avoidance kind of behavior. So that's why the really solid foundation is the hating them, because you are possibly going to get cravings. With me, I didn't this time because the hatred was so solid of it. And I realized I only had to get through a few days for the physical side of that to alleviate. And then it was all mental stuff after that. And my mind had already, on previous quits, played so many games on me, and I recognized them all as games and everything, that none of them actually came up this time at all. So, you know, anybody who has a failed quit under their belt, don't worry at all, because the next quit, you might have had one horrendous quit, you might have had one that different things happened on, but this might be the one. And try to do it in time. I would say it would be helpful to do this, because this is, I think, really what really helped me this time. I had little to no stress going on in my life. When I gave them up this time. That made a huge difference, because there was nothing coming along that was a huge problem or a worry that I was going, oh no, I'm banjaxed anyway now with this issue happening. I might as well smoke. That's how my mind reacts to intense stress, is to say, oh, I'm banjaxed, I'll just smoke, because I can't deal with um, all the stress and trying to fix an addiction as well. I actually have to have a clear period where there's no stress. So maybe if you're thinking about quitting, think about, okay, can I get a little period of time where there's no stress going on for me in which to do that? You just need a little window. I know life isn't stress free, but a little window of opportunity, and you jump in there to your quit, and I think your chances go way up then, because smoking and stress, or addiction and stress, probably go together very strongly. That, you know, I don't know. I'm not going to even going to venture guesses, because they would be guesses about the nature of the relationship between them. But I'm sorry if you're a smoker. I'm sorry if you wouldn't have got this far in the video unless you were wanting or considering quitting anyway. So I don't mean to add to your stress. Don't mean to guilt or shame anybody for smoking. And anybody that's not smoking probably wouldn't have gotten this far either, because a lot of people who don't smoke just think it's a silly habit, and because they don't do it, that everybody should be able to quit very easily and everything. You know, it's all perspective, isn't it? You know, so they probably wouldn't have lasted this long in the video either. But I hope it's useful to somebody. It's definitely worth getting to the hating place with cigarettes, or I suppose any addiction that might be advised. You know, that your head is going to be playing the games with you, isn't it? So you have to identify those games and then stop the games in their tracks. So year 2, here I come. Woo-hoo-hoo. Bye bye. And next video is really, the lives are the ones I ramble on. Then I do short videos, and they're most likely to be things on insects. And I never realized how many people hate insects. I keep getting thumbs down for them. People just want me to do sewing videos. But the sewing video, that is the next video that's coming up. So don't despair if you're somebody that only likes sewing but hates ants. Because that's the next one coming up. But it's a hobbies channel, so there's going to be a few different things on it. But I'm doing a sewing series at the moment, you see, so I have a lot of people on that are just enjoying the sewing videos. I don't know when I'm going to do a book video. I'm still reading Proust's The Captive at the moment and still loving it. See ya, bye. Year 2, here I come.